All of my films I've shot in the North Country, oddly enough. One for Mississippi, but because I could find an old shack up here that you could never really find in Mississippi in terms of it actually worked. But the other films I've shot up here, first of all, it's very near the border, and for the purposes of Frozen River, it makes a very unique culture, a border culture, and also a Native American culture that's very, present here. So for me, that's what drew me into the story of Frozen River. But in general, shooting in Plattsburgh, as we did, was great for a million other reasons. One being the Plattsburgh population was very receptive, very helpful. It was, I think, an interesting thing going on in their winter, which is a long one.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of different reasons that shooting in the North Country works, and I would shoot again here in a heartbeat. North Country women are fascinating to me because, again, of the terrain, the geography. Economically, there's been a long tradition of, sort of just getting by. And I think that is particularly hard on women, certainly single women, single moms, in a place that's sort of so, it doesn't have the same kind of infrastructure to support people the way it does downstate or in a bigger city or an urban area. So I feel they're sort of frontier women in a way, that they're out on the range and they're getting by the best way they can, whether it's a job at Walmart or smuggling or teaching or whatever they can do. I think there's a certain breed of women up here that are very strong and can survive these winters and raise their children, and I sort of admire that. For Frozen River, I got to know people in the Malone area, people in Akwesasne that I made friends within that reservation, also people up at Ganawaga and Oka, and on the border that sort of live right on the border, white and native, and just tried to get an overall sense of who was doing what and how they were surviving.
Right.
How people were getting by. And, I think my film does not pretend to say this is how everyone up here lives, but it certainly, I think, represents a small but very interesting section of the population. I'm always surprised about any award. I'm very happy. The most surprising was the Bronze Horse in Stockholm. That one kind of came out of left field, as did the Gotham. As did the nominations. They really all. I mean, you make a movie, you try to tell a story, and you cannot predict with any certainty if it's going to catch on. I think if it does, it's because it speaks to some universal feeling that a big part of the population has. That said, when you say success, yes, critically acclaimed, and yes, many awards, but the truth is, almost as many people have seen the movie in France as have seen it here. It has not been widely seen in the way that a bigger movie would, that had movie stars in it. I, on the other hand, I had low expectations because I was doing something that was such a very, they call it in Hollywood, a small story, a very narrow, very small story that's just focusing on one little population or one little area. So I was very surprised, but the issues of single motherhood, the issues of sovereignty within the Mohawk Nation, the issues of being in a border region actually are in the American consciousness right now, certainly post 9/11. So I had hopes that this might appeal to people, but I was surprised at how much it did. Well, I really worked hardest on Lila, who's the Mohawk character. She was someone I had to really reach to understand. With Ray, I was raised by a single mother, so there was a little bit of a head start there in terms of understanding her. The moment that I worked the hardest on is I asked myself, my question for the movie was, can a white woman can two women, in this case, can two women from two totally different cultures ever really trust each other when you get to their own personal well-being being threatened? And I didn't know the answer when I wrote it. So the end of the movie, when there is this connection made between the two of them, was a surprise to me, and I was glad to see it. But I let the characters tell me how this thing was going to work out once I was well into the draft. So that was the toughest part, because I had to write the whole thing and not knowing if that was going to work out, or if they were just going to betray each other, or if they were not. And so to me, that was the biggest surprise and the most challenging part of writing the script. I concluded the film the day I concluded it. I just asked the question as I was writing it, and then the day I got to that page where, the story had rounded down to the moment where the characters would transform in some way or fail to, that was the day I wrote it. I learned a lot about how to produce a movie. I learned a lot about, when you're writing a movie, you do this, it's a whole complete process. When you go to produce a movie, it's like starting all over again with a brand new process, because you're dealing with actors and you're dealing with a community, in this case Plattsburgh, different personalities. So there's like 3 lives to a movie. There's the writing of it, there's the producing of it, and then there's the editing of it, where you just mix it all up and start again. So it was really those three lives of this movie. As everyone knows, I made the movie for $500,000. So there was no money. That's considered no money in movies. It's not low budget. It's beyond that. And it made it incredibly difficult. We felt we could be shut down any day. We were not sure if we'd have payroll a few times. It was really scary. But I think the crew and the cast certainly had empathy for the characters that they were portraying, who were in fact much poorer and weren't worried about such trivialities as making movies. They were worried about getting food on the table. So that focused us as a group, and I think it helped us get the job done. Well, I got lucky and got Melissa on board Melissa Leo came on board fairly quickly, so I didn't have to struggle too much with that. She's extremely talented and yet very willing to dive into a story like this. With Misty Upham, again, I lucked out. I just found a really gifted native actress. She's actually from Seattle, who was willing to be a part of it for what was going to be very little money. And then the big jackpot, in a sense, was that there were 13 actors from Ganawaga that just were here. And they fill out the film in the best way. And so that was just my good fortune to have, to be able to get to them and have them come and participate in the movie and do beautiful work. I think the Mohawks are like every other nation. They have many points of view, and some feedback I've gotten has been very positive. Some feedback I've gotten has been worried that I somehow portrayed the smuggling, and that would in some way make the world think that all Mohawks are smugglers, which I think the movie doesn't do. I got all kinds of different feedback, and I was glad to hear it. Well, this film festival is critically important. I'm so glad it came back. I was asked by Kathleen Carroll, when I think she saw the movie at Sundance, to come and bring the movie here. And of course, Russell Banks is like my hero, so I was like, okay, because she said he was going to be here. And the people that come and the people that he brings in are really heavyweights in fiction and in cinema. So it's like a little boutique, it's like a little gem that most people don't even know about, but I think it's really, the panel discussions are interesting. It's a great little diamond in the rough, and I think more and more, as independent film is more and more marginalized, places like this will be where the sort of underground of film comes back up and finds the mainstream.